His former chief of staff has said that former President Trump was telling him to go after his opponents repeatedly. Here he was always telling me that we need to use the FBI and IRS to go after people. It was constant and obsessive.
Talking points. To every Republican supporting her, what the hell are you doing? You're supporting the most radical nominee in the history of American politics.
During a recent interview, Trump sycophant and Republican Senator Lindsey Graham had an on-camera meltdown at the fact that many Republicans who used to work for Donald Trump are publicly criticizing him, and many other Republicans are committing to vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. And this meltdown is something to behold. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we got a clip or two to look at here. Lindsey Graham is a regular on the Sunday morning TV shows and interviews. So for those of you who are unaware, most of the political interviews are conducted, like the high-profile ones, on Sunday. Fox News Sunday, Meet the Press, Face the Nation. They get a lot of high-profile Democrats and Republicans. Lindsey Graham is on that circuit a lot. So during the course of the interview, and this is about a 2-minute clip, maybe 3 minutes, so I'm about to show you, you need to see the full thing. Like, Graham just was on the verge of tears. He was so upset that so many ex-Trump officials are publicly criticizing Trump, and so many Republicans are committing to voting for Vice President Harris. So we're going to watch the meltdown, and then I'll see you on the other side. It's good.
Let me tell you what retired 4-star General Mark Milley, someone who you have praised in the past, has had to say about Donald Trump. Of course, he's Donald Trump's former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He told Bob Woodward in a new book, quote, "No one has ever been as dangerous to this country as Donald Trump. Now I realize he's a total fascist, a fascist to the core. Why shouldn't voters trust Donald Trump's top general on this, Senator?"
He has a right to his opinion, but this is the man who oversaw 20 years of training of the Afghan-Iraqi army that folded like a cheap suit. I like General Milley, but I disagree with him. You know what I fear? I fear 4 more years of Biden-Harris policy. I fear holding Israel back so they can't win the war they have to win to survive. I fear 4 more years of holding Ukraine back, 4 more years of broken borders, 4 more years of not drilling for oil and gas, 4 more years of high food prices. The threat to the world is the policies of this administration. To General Milley, you have a right to your opinion, but I don't fear Donald Trump. I fear what's going on in the world today. If you want the world to stay on fire, vote for her. If you want to keep paying high prices for everything it costs to live, vote for her.
But Senator, you've known General Milley for years. You've said you have deep admiration and total confidence. I think he's wrong. John Kelly, his former chief of staff, has said that former President Trump was telling him to go after his opponents repeatedly. Here he was always telling me that we need to use the FBI and IRS to go after people. It was constant and obsessive.
Talking points. I think they're wrong.
He's the former chief of staff.
I think they're wrong. I think they're totally wrong. It was Joe Biden who got us out of Afghanistan that led to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It was Kamala Harris, the border czar, that opened up our border to 10 million illegal immigrants running wild, women getting raped and killed, terrorists residing in our backyard. It was their decision to stop energy production, making us more energy independent. It was their decision to abandon Israel at their time of need when it came to weapons.
Senator, the U.S. is making more energy than
I think these generals are wrong.
But they worked for Donald Trump.
You know what? I know,
they worked for former President Trump. These are former Trump administration
officials. To every Republican supporting her, what the hell are you doing? You're supporting the most radical nominee in the history of American politics. The Green New Deal, Medicare for all. She was the last person in the room before Biden decided to withdraw from Afghanistan. She was the border czar. She kept.
So as you can see, Lindsey Graham is on one, as the kids would say. He is not doing well. I disagree with him. I disagree with him. You can hear the tremble in his voice, his eyes getting all glassy. He's on the verge of just an emotional breakdown, perhaps because he's smart enough to recognize how much he's abandoned his principles, seeing these conservatives that he has publicly professed respect and admiration for, who worked for Trump even more directly and intimately than Graham himself has, come out and say, yeah, the guy's a loser. He's a fascist. He's dangerous. He's unfit for office. Perhaps he's like, oh my God, they found a way to reclaim their spine and their principle, and I've chosen not to. What a pathetic loser. I'll remind you, I believe this tweet is still up, from May 3rd, 2016. Lindsey Graham, if we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. That used to be Lindsey Graham 8 years ago. There's also a handy compilation, multiple compilations to this effect, but just as a reminder.
I just don't believe Donald Trump is a reliable conservative Republican. Good luck with Paul Ryan trying to find a conservative agenda with this guy. And I don't think he has the temperament or judgment to be commander-in-chief. And Donald Trump convinced North Korea and China he was serious about bringing about change. We're not there yet, but if this happens, President Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He lost me when he accused George W. Bush of lying to the American people about the Iraq War, and he thinks Putin's a good guy. So I just can't go there. The president does now finally believe that the Russians stole the emails from the DNC and hacked and Clinton.
He does?
You know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell. I mean, he beat us. The Trump movement is real. I'm trying to work with him to harmonize the party. He will be our nominee. I'm confident of that, and I will support him.
Again, total lack of principle, absolute fidelity to only political expedience. Lindsey Graham is someone who deserves nothing but your contempt and your revulsion. In many ways, much more than an actual MAGA cultist who is pathetic in their own way. But somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, as unhinged as she is probably a true believer because she's that stupid. Lindsey Graham is not stupid. Lindsey Graham correctly identified Trump for what he was. Now, given that he's ranting about Republicans who have turned away from Trump, we are going to hear from one such Republican in a couple of clips. But again, I just want to remind you, it is unprecedented. The number of ex-Trump officials and high-ranking cabinet officials, senior staff, who are not endorsing Donald Trump, even though he is, sadly, eligible for re-election. It's unprecedented. Joe Biden doesn't have that problem. Kamala Harris doesn't have that problem. Barack Obama didn't have that problem. George Bush didn't have that problem. Bill Clinton didn't have that problem. This is unprecedented. Donald Trump is uniquely incompetent in this respect. If, again, Anthony Scaramucci, another former Trump official, as he once said, if there were 40 out of 44 members of the board of a pharmaceutical company that went public saying, hey, don't buy this pill, even though we made it, you wouldn't buy the pill. He said if 40 out of 44 members of the board of directors of an automotive company came out and wrote a letter and say, hey, don't buy this car, we built it, you wouldn't buy the car. A rational electorate would hear what experienced ex-Trump officials who served him loyally, personally and directly and professionally, now have to say about him, and they'd be like, oh, hell, that's ridiculous. If you were a hiring manager and it was your job to pick candidates for a particular job and you got their resume and it was lackluster the way that Trump's is, and then you reached out to people who worked with them directly and 40 out of 44 people you spoke to said, do not hire this person, I cannot endorse them for this job, you wouldn't hire them. So the only reason that Donald Trump has the support he does is because, unfortunately, we have an irrational electorate and we may be living with the consequences if he wins the election. I'll also remind you that Donald Trump was the one who set the stage for the Afghanistan withdrawal. He kicked the can down the road. He set up a disastrous deal with the Taliban. Lindsey Graham didn't have anything to say about that. And Biden was left to pick up the pieces. And all things considered, it was a remarkable accomplishment. 120,000 people airlifted out of a rapidly collapsing country, given the parameters and the conditions that Donald Trump set up. Lindsey Graham has nothing to say about that. Yes, 13 service people were tragically killed by an ISIS-K terrorist. That is tragic. More people, I think 4 to 5 times that number, died under Donald Trump's watch when he was president. Again, Lindsey Graham doesn't care about that because he's an unprincipled, hypocritical loser. Somebody who's not an unprincipled, hypocritical loser, somebody who is certainly much more right-wing than I want and who I hope has no influence on the upcoming Harris administration, is Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney, however, even though I want her to have nothing to do with the Harris administration because she's much too right-wing for me, she's at least principled enough to put country over party. She was recently at an event with Vice President Kamala Harris, and I want to play you 2 clips of things she had to say.
For me, every single thing in my experience and in my background has played a part in my decision to endorse Vice President Harris. And you know, that begins with the fact that I'm a conservative. And I know that the most conservative of all conservative principles is being faithful to the Constitution. And you have to choose in this race between someone who has been faithful to the Constitution, who will be faithful, and Donald Trump, who it's not just us predicting how he will act. We watched what he did after the last election. We watched what he did on January 6th.
And I should say, so did Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, when Congress reconvened after the insurrection, said, I like Trump. I voted for him. I wanted him to win. Well, this is where I get off. And then, of course, he walked it back because, again, I cannot stress this enough. Lindsey Graham is an unprincipled, hypocritical loser. He really is, who will say anything for power. That's it. That's why he is so repulsive. Another clip from Liz Cheney.
Well, it's not just able to endorse them, but if you look at the numbers of the most senior officials who served Donald Trump, his own vice president, national security advisors, as chief of staff, you know, the leading generals who served him, who've all said he's unfit. And people really need to stop and think about how completely unprecedented that is. And the idea, when people sort of say, well, we might, you know, be tempted for some reason or another to vote for Donald Trump. If the issue is foreign policy, I would just ask everyone, think about how dangerous and damaging it is to have someone who's totally erratic, completely unstable, someone who has aligned himself with, who idolizes tyrants. He idolizes tyrants. You know, again, the choice here with respect to national security policy is a man who has proven, he's absolutely proven that he will not stand up, he won't defend this nation with respect to our own Constitution and rule of law. And Vice President Harris, who has been clear in terms of support for Ukraine, in terms of recognizing and understanding across the board that America cannot maintain our own freedom and security if we walk away from our allies around the world. And our adversaries know that they can play Donald Trump.
His own National Security Advisor John Bolton said the same damn thing. Lifelong conservative Republican who worked in that capacity advising Trump, who said that the relationship between Trump and Putin was Putin is much smarter than Trump, knows he can play Trump with vanity and flattery. So, listen, again, I want to emphasize this. Liz Cheney voted with Donald Trump 93% of the time. She is a conservative. I do not want to see Liz Cheney setting policy in a Harris administration. I don't think that will be the case, and I hope it's not the case. So when people say, why is she backing Kamala Harris over Donald Trump? Because I do believe this one thing about Liz Cheney. She does value one thing more than conservative policy, and that is the peaceful transfer of power and the future of the republic. I do believe that. I believe that's all this is. And hopefully, that is the extent to which the alliance between Harris and Cheney remains. I am confident that Liz Cheney will not be an influence on a Kamala Harris administration. I hope that's not the case. But Cheney herself is a stark contrast to somebody like Lindsey Graham, who not only has all the conservative policy of Liz Cheney, but he lacks the one redeeming quality, which is, unlike Cheney, he puts party above country. It's actually person, then party, then country, because he puts Donald Trump above the Republican Party and he puts both of them above his country. He has it the exact opposite the way it should be. Pretty pathetic stuff. Love to see the meltdown. Let me know what you think in the comments.